The greenhouse gas emissions accounting tool created by the 5 public transport operators is based on the Bilan Carbone method developed by the French Environment and Energy Management Agency, ADEME. This tool enables companies to assess the greenhouse impact of their activities. It's divided into sections on energy, cooling fluids, materials and services, packaging, freight, waste, transport of persons, use of products, end of life of products, and the depreciation of fixed assets. The partners of the TicketToKyoto project joined forces to adapt this carbon assessment method in order to take account of the characteristics of transport sectors. To do this, it was first necessary to remove those sections not relevant to transport, packaging, manufacturing, use, then modify the energy section so it included 4 new categories adapted to the partners' characteristics: traction energy consumption, train and metro stations energy consumption, workshops and depots energy consumption, and lastly, tertiary buildings energy consumption. This made it possible to give energy an important place in the emissions accounting tool, consistent with the place it represents for transport operators. Traction energy consumption. The first section deals with traction energy consumption. It includes 3 emission sources: electricity, combustion of fossil fuels, combustion of fossil fuels required for the extraction and production of these. All these emission sources must be taken into account in the carbon assessment. Care will be taken to separate the compulsory categories in red from the optional categories in pink. The second section deals with emissions resulting from energy required to operate train and metro stations. It's divided into 5 sources: electricity, heating, energy needed to extract and produce heating energy, cooling, energy needed for cooling, These emission sources are also found in the following 2 sections: workshops and depots energy consumption and office buildings energy consumption. Once again, all these sources must be taken into account. Next come cooling fluids. In the present case, only fluid losses from systems will be assessed. It's worth noting that 1 kilo of cooling fluid equals 2,000 kilos of CO2 emissions. The materials and services section is divided into emissions linked to the manufacturing of purchased products and materials and those embodied in different services purchased. The taking into account of the impacts of these sources is optional. Freight is the 7th section taken into account by the assessment tool. It covers the transport of goods from suppliers to customers and internal transport necessary for the logistics of a company. For the latter, emissions are divided into the combustion of the energy source and the upstream phases of its extraction and production. This 8th section covers travel by employees. Compulsory sources include work-related car travel, for which, once again, a distinction is made between extraction, production and consumption, and work-related travel using other modes of transport. The optional sources are homework travel and travel by users to train and metro stations. Waste forms the 9th section, which is optional. Lastly, the depreciation of fixed assets is divided into infrastructure such as tunnel and stations, rolling stock, buildings, service vehicles, and all computer hardware. Together, these parameters form the new carbon footprint calculation tool for transport operators. The compulsory sources make it possible to create a common perimeter for each user. The conditions are thus present to then obtain pertinent results with regard to the characteristics of transport operators. For transport operators, this constitutes a first step towards the development of a greenhouse gas emissions reduction strategy.